Well, welcome to the channel. In this video we're looking at original photographs of vintage and classic motorcycles. To begin with, a photo sent over by Robert Chestnut, and his mother-in-law's there, and she is with a pair of militarised World War II matchless bikes. Now, I'm the first to admit that I don't know a great deal about motorcycles, so I've numbered each image, and I hope that if anyone can help identify the bikes as the video rolls along, that would be much appreciated. Photograph number 2, we've got a pair of chaps here and their motorcycles. I'm not quite sure on the location of the bikes. The bikes are very well loaded, so I'm guessing they're on a bit of a road trip, but more than that, I do not know. If you can identify any of these bikes, please let me know. There are the same bikes on a different road, different location, same chaps. But where is this, I wonder? I'm not quite sure. Perhaps you recognise this road, or more likely you might recognise the motorcycles that are shown on it. Like I say, I don't know a great deal about these bikes, so you do, I'm sure, if you've found this video, so it'd be great to hear from you. Now, 2 photographs of this particular machine appear in the video, one now and one a little bit later. There's a girl here sat on a bike, HCL 887. Caravan site, some old caravans there, and the motorcycle sidecar in the distance there. Quite an interesting shape, fully enclosed too. Now, a gaggle of motorcycles here. On the left and on the far right we've got examples of matchless, and I think bike number 4 is a Triumph, but the other 2 I'm not too sure about. Do you know what these motorcycles are? There's a period shot of 2 bikes being used on what looks like a bit of a camping trip or something similar. DTP 964 and NLX 984. Well laden. Both have motor club badges on the back, on the rear mud guards. Perhaps you recognise those badges. Photograph number 7, I believe this was taken in Germany. There was a note on the back of the photo saying that the child was 1 year 3 months old at the time of this photo. But do you recognise what the machine is itself? Interesting bar around the headlight there. Couple of photos now which I believe were taken in Australia. Here we've got a motorcyclist with his old pudding basin helmet on. Looks like a trials bike, numbers on the side and on the front, but what is it? At the same location, possibly the same gent, we've got this machine here. Now, the registration plate on the front mudguard shows Vic for Victoria, which is what makes me think this is probably Australia. I have to say I really love these old photos. This Royal Enfield picture was one of several car and motorcycle photos that turned up in an album a little while ago. I think they were all taken in the Cheshire, Staffordshire area. MTU 518, that's a Cheshire series, introduced in June of 1950. Some wonderful photographs in here. Classic and vintage motorcycles. There's another photo of the same bike, the Royal Enfield, but a different gent stood with it. Now, photo number 12, it's the same gent, but a different motorbike, still a Royal Enfield, but this one is registered LNB 655, which is a Manchester series, also introduced in June 1950. Quite an interesting shed behind him, I wonder what's hidden away in there. Photo 13, again, is of LNB 655, that Royal Enfield motorcycle, rear 3/4 view. It's just a glimpse of a tent on the left there, so I'm guessing this may have been on a camping trip somewhere rather than being photographed at home. And then the same album is this view, side-on view of a motorcycle, but more than that I do not know. JP3686, that's a Wigan series, and it ran from 1934 all the way through to 1952, but what bike is that? Back to LNB 655 again. There's that gent again. This time he's sat on it. We saw him before stood outside the shed, but now he's actually astride his machine. And the next photo in this collection of original photographs of vintage and classic motorcycles is from the same album again, so I'm guessing somewhere in the Cheshire, Staffordshire area, somewhere like that. Two unidentified motorcycles here parked up. And from the same album is this one of a BSA, at least I can identify this one, RE7486. That's a Staffordshire series, and that ran all the way from 1921 to 1947. Same group of fellas again, and we've got a trio of motorcycles here. I'm not quite sure of the location. SRE 703, I'm pretty sure that's a BSA Bantam, but as for the other two, can you let me know? I do love these old photographs, they just sum up the eras so well. And here is that second photo that I promised of this particular machine that appeared earlier with the old caravans, HCL 887. Some of the earliest photographs probably date to sort of the mid-teens, 1915, 1917, somewhere like that, right through until the 1960s, so there's quite a mix of old motorcycles featured here. Next up, photograph number 20. We've got a pair of bikes here. There's a BSA in the foreground, two gents astride their machines. Is that a Norton alongside the Beezer? Reminds me of the 16H Norton, sort of 1940s, but I'm sure you'll let me know. Now, photo 21, IM 1788. Two photos of this particular machine. That's a Galway registration from west of Ireland, 1903 to 1950. That ran for. The photos themselves are printed in Dublin. Is that AJS on the tank? I can just about see. There's the same location, the bike the other way around. You can just see a little bit more detail of the bike, including part of the registration there on the front number plate. I'm sure it was an AJS. It's a fantastic old photo, such a clear image as well. The ladies are called, apparently, Elsie and Flo Chamberlain. That's a Lincolnshire registration that ran from 1922 to 1929. That's a studio photograph. Quite often at seaside locations you'd have a studio set up with a painting in the background and a car or a motorcycle to sit on, and you could be photographed with them. Now, photo 24, that's a Devon registered machine. That series ran from 1924 to 1926, but what motorcycle is that she's on? One common theme through all these photographs pretty much is that everyone looks very, very happy to be on their motorbike. A couple of happy people here, you see. Photo number 25, I think this is a Triumph. That's a Dublin registration series that ran from 1903 all the way to 1921. I'm guessing possibly a Triumph, but if you could let me know, that would be great. Photo 26, I believe this is a 1915 Triumph V Twin. That's a London registration series, and because London issues were, lots of vehicles down there, the series didn't run for very long. This series only ran from 1915 to 1916, and that helps date the bike pretty accurately. But if you can confirm or deny any of that, please do so. Now, number 27 is a BSA. This is circa 1933. Could it be a B33 or something like that? Here we've got two gents and vintage machines. Not a great deal of information came with these photos, and sadly now we move to photo number 29, and a bike registered PR 1962. That's a Dorset series that ran from 1923 to 1927, so very much a vintage motorcycle. But what is it? It looks to be fairly small capacity, looking at the engine there. Motorcycles played a big part in the history of our family on my mum's side of the family, as I'll explain a bit later. Now, IJ2006 is the registration, photo number 30. This is a Triumph, I believe, possibly a 3.5 horsepower version. The registration is from Down, and that series ran from 1903 to 1930, so I'm guessing this is sort of mid-teens, somewhere around there. Next up, a bloke sat on his AJS, very shiny AJS, AJ Stevens, that stands for, photo number 31. Some of our old family photos will be appearing later in this video that shows some of the machines that they had. Now, sadly, no information accompanies this great old photograph. I'm guessing this is sort of late teens, 1920 or thereabouts, but a huge gathering of old motorcycles, some of them with sidecars on, but a great, great image. The fact that you could take over the road like that and no one really complain, very much another era, 100 or so years ago now, of course. Next, photo 33, that's a Hampshire registered bike. That series ran from 26 through to 1928, so that pins it down fairly accurately to probably in the middle, about 1927. I wonder if that bike lived in the shed in the background there. This is a great scene, I love this. I mean, if anyone can recognise that motorbike from the frame and the bits and pieces that are dotted around, best of luck. It just looks fantastic image. I love the fact he's got an inner tube around his neck. A couple of old bicycles there as well. Ancient motorcycle in pieces. I wonder what they were doing with it, breaking it for parts. Were they going to renovate it? Is that a tin of paint there? Now, we've got several photographs taken in Pietermaritzburg. This is in South Africa. This is a motorcycle race in 1959. Various machines in action are shown here over the next few photographs. If you know anything about the races that took part at this particular circuit, let me know in the comments. Comments welcome as always on any of the photos featured here. Another chap here at speed, bike number 53. Couple more here, motorcycle 25 and number 31. Zooming around the Pietermaritzburg circuit there. Is the circuit still in use? I haven't looked it up, so it'd be interesting to know if it's still around or what that site is used for now. It's an interesting sidecar combination racer. Note the position of the handlebars on the motorcycle itself and the passenger there leaning into the corner to get the weight over, to get the bike round. What a great image that is. You can just imagine the noise standing there photographing that way back in the, 1959, wasn't it? Another chap here at speed, pudding basin helmet and his goggles on, hunkered down low there, bike number 2. Now, I think this is somewhere in Europe, I'm guessing maybe France or Belgium, somewhere like that. We've got a motor-assisted bicycle. What's that name on the fuel tank there? Is it Himk or Mink or Hinky or Minky or something like that? I'm sure someone will recognise it. It reminds me a bit of the Velo Soul X, but obviously it's not one of those. Here's a wonderfully clear photograph. Sometimes these old photos, 100 plus years old, can be a bit fuzzy because the cameras weren't always up to much, but here's a fantastic head-on view of a James motorcycle and sidecar combination, SL670. That's a Clackmannanshire registration, SL, Scotland. That ran from 1903 all the way to 1964. Now, side-on view of NB8890. That's a Manchester registration series from 1919 to 1920 only. Now the gent there is shown with presumably his child, so maybe he rode motorcycles during the Great War. It's quite possible, and when he came back home he carried on the tradition. Now, slightly later, we've got a water-cooled Velocette LE, close in view of an LE. These were very popular with various police forces back in the day. Very quiet machine apparently. They could sneak up on the felons without being heard. There's a wonderful photo of GW1275, photograph number 44. I think we can just see the top of an M for matchless on the fuel tank there. I'm wondering if there's another one of these studio or posed photographs. GW was a London series that ran from 1931 to 1932. Wonderful old sidecar there and a family with the bike as well. Now, photo number 45. Very little information with this one. It's a CJ registration on the bike. That's a Hertfordshire issue. That ran a long time, 1904 all the way through to 1927. I love the little horn just on the crossbar there. There's a bicycle in the background leaning against a pub wall. This photo is of the same bike, same gentleman, and possibly the same pub in the background. Again, CJ3786 is the motorcycle, but do you know what it is? If you like your classic motorcycles or vintage bikes, please leave a note in the comment section. I'd love to hear what bikes you've got tucked away in the shed. The beauty of old motorbikes is they don't take up a great deal of space. Now, photo 47. I think this is a BSA C11G, a 250 from the 1950s. That's a Kent registration, circa 1954. I love the way they've got the dog perched on the saddle there. Obviously very well trained. Now, photo number 48. This is another one on which I have very, very little information. It's somewhere in Europe. I don't recognise that registration plate or the bike. So if you can help me out on that one, please do so. Slightly fuzzy, but still an interesting photo of CKF685, photo number 49, which I believe is a late pre-war, about 1938-ish BSA. Now, I did write on the back of the photo, Empire Star ? So is that what it is? That's a Liverpool registration from about 1937. Velocette, fantastic. I do like my old Velos. This is a KTP twin port, I believe, circa 1930 or thereabouts. It was a 350cc single. There's quite a lot of interesting stuff going on in the background there, various shops and so on. Well worth pausing the video just to have a look at some of the displays in the shop windows there. Costumes and shoes. So the post-war years, NYD 519 is the bike in photograph number 51. That's a BSA Bantam, a Somerset registration, introduced February 1952, thus dating the bike pretty accurately. You can see the painted wheel rims. That's always a giveaway of the early BSA Bantams, the 125s. Another studio posed photo now for number 52, and this, you can just about make out on the tank, is a Royal Ruby. This is a touring model apparently. Studio photo, we've got a beach scene painted on the wall there in the background. A young lad sat astride the machine. What a great photo that is. I do love some of these old photographs. Here's an interesting old bike, FD6858. That's an Ariel sloper from the early 1930s. You can see the engine angled forward, hence the name sloper. A few bike makers did produce bikes with that sort of engine design for a few years in the early 30s. Ariel being perhaps one of the best known. BSA did too. Another Ariel here, TL216. That's a Lincolnshire registration. That series ran from 28 to 1942, so I'm guessing the bike is fairly early in that particular period. But what model rather is it? It's got a hand change on the side of the tank there. The guy's got his woolly gloves on. An unusual bike now. This is a Scott. These were built up in Shipley in West Yorkshire. It could well be a Scott Squirrel, but if you can add to that information or confirm or deny it, please do so. Carrying on with these fantastic old photographs, we've got KYL22, photo number 56. This is a BS7, a BSA. I think it's an A7, a 500cc bike. That's a London series from 1949. There's just an old car lurking in the background there as well. Is that a Ford CX, perhaps, pre-war car? A lovely, lovely old motorcycle and sidecar combination next, RE8694 is the registration. The location is the War Memorial even, Garboldisham in Norfolk. Very interesting style of wheel on that sidecar as well. I've never seen one like that before. Perhaps they were visiting the memorial to remember some old fallen comrades. Now, LMK 885 is a Norton. LMK was a London series introduced in 1942. And my best guess is that this is a Norton 16H, in which case it would be a 500cc bike. The location isn't known. There's a couple of old cars in the background there. Two photographs now of a couple of motorcycle and sidecar combinations on a camping trip. Front on view of the both bikes there. You can see AA badges on them both. And they're sidecars. Are they matching sidecars? Look like it. very, very tatty old photographs, this one and the one that's coming up next, number 60. And what I love about these tatty old photos is they've obviously been in someone's wallet for probably the best part of 50 years, and that's why they're so scratty, but they obviously meant a great deal to whoever owned them. Both bikes are slopers, but who made them? Back to the vintage years now, a couple of bikes with sidecars on, two very different designs of sidecar and evidence there. If you know who made those as well as the bikes, please let me know. All extra information is very welcome. Photograph number 62 in this set is a head-on view of two fine old British motorcycles here. Most of the bikes are British in this particular set. There are one or two foreign jobs, but the bike on the left I can see is a Levis. I can just about make out the name on the petrol tank there. The bike on the right, I really do not know. Here's a great old scene. We've got an AA patrolman on his BSA PYE 342. I'm guessing that's an M20. They were popular. That's dating to about 1955. But what's going on? Is that a wedding? I mean, there's some very smartly dressed people there. A couple of ladies appear to me in Victorian garb, so I'm not quite sure what's happening there. Is it a wedding? Is it something else? I really don't know. Now, a Douglas. We've got a side-on view now, photo number 64, of an early, probably 1930s Douglas machine. We've got a chap and his young lady on the back of it. There's even a nice old bicycle in the background with another lady on it. But what cheerful photographs these are. You know, the people are really having fun in most of these scenes, I think. And again, a smiley couple here on FVB 812. That's a London series from 1947. Interesting sidecar there as well. Of course, back in the day, motorcycle and sidecar, if you couldn't run to running a car, people would often choose a motorcycle and sidecar. Not everyone did it through choice, but through necessity. Now, first of a few family photographs here. Number 66, this is my great uncle Glyn. The date is 14th of September 1949. He and several of his brothers were instrumental in setting up the International Welsh 2 Days Trials in Wales. They were very keen on sort of motorsport, motorcycle sport, etc. back in the 1950s. There's my late uncle on NDB 737. I don't quite know what the bike is, but it's Stockport registered from about April, May 1958 or thereabouts. Like I say, on Mum's side of the family in Mid Wales, they were all very keen bike people. Another old family photo. This is my maternal, i.e. Mum's father, my maternal granddad, and he is sat on an old Douglas here. I believe it's a 1927 or 28 Douglas, a flat twin, 349cc side valve engine. There's that ever-ready battery just behind his shoe there. But yep, that's my granddad on one of his old motorbikes. Another family photo here. This is Beguiledy in Mid Wales. There's an unidentified bike just on the right there, and there's various relatives stood with the lorry in the background. The gent in the middle was I think it was one of the policemen in Beguiledy itself. That's photo number 69. Then rounding out this collection of original photos of vintage and classic motorcycles, we've got this great old seaside scene. It's like a painted board. You pop your head through and you have your photograph taken with it. What a fantastic old image that is. And that, like I say, concludes this collection of photographs of motorcycles, black and white motorcycles, of the 1910s, 1920s, right the way through until the beginning of the 1960s. I hope that was of interest. Mainly the channel is about old cars, of course, but I do occasionally veer into other forms of transport, hence this collection of motorcycle photographs. So thanks very much for watching, and there'll be more videos along very, very soon. Bye for now.